Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to the channel. So, on social media today, I see this post that says History 101 posts the top 43 guitar players of all time, and it gives like some clickbait of like Eric Clapton's not the best. We dare say. And I just have to laugh because I ended up wanting to see the list just because I can't imagine number one Clapton being number one on any list because it's always Hendrix. And oddly enough, it was Hendrix on this one. This list was probably the worst list I've seen, and I want to talk today about these superlative lists that get put into magazines and whatnot. First of all, let me just state, when I was a kid, I used to love Kiss, and I remember in Cream magazine that used to say, top 3 drummers, Peter Criss, Carl Palmer, and John Bonham. And I'd be like, yeah, it's Kiss, man. As I got older, I was like, what, did they have stock in that magazine? Because it's such nonsense. And it is such pandering to Cream magazine was very involved with Kiss. There's like a lot of pandering on what goes on. And when you have these like superlative lists, they're really like favorite lists, or like when you see it says like our reader poll, and it's like who's the favorite. And people have their reasons why they think Hendrix should be number one. Personally, I don't, and I don't care. I do my own lists on this channel. You've seen me do my top 10 Kiss, and my I've also done the top Zeppelins that I compared to Rolling Stone magazine. And the reason I do it is because when I do a list, it's because you're watching the host of the number one channel on YouTube. What? We're not number one? Your favorite YouTube channel. And your favorite host. I'm not their favorite host. A host on your favorite YouTube channel. You basically get to see my insight. And maybe that will turn you on to go, oh, wait a second. I've never heard of this guy. Let me go check out what he does. Because Dave suggested that's one of his influences. And in return, I sometimes ask that you put your favorites in my comments, not because I want your comments. It's really selfish reasons. I want to see what I miss. And I do check it out. And if you don't see me comment afterwards, and it's been like a month, it's because I didn't like it. If I do like it, I'll be like, oh, this was great. Or, I had situations where I went out to do trivia one night at a local pub here, and the guy I was talking to was talking to me about this album by Laura Nyro with Patti LaBelle's band, just going off how great it was. And so he was so enthused about telling me about it, how important the record was to him. I listened to it and got it, and I loved it. I think it's a great, great record, and I'm so thrilled that I did. When I did a gig one time, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, have you ever listened to Richard Thompson? I'm like, I don't even know who that is. And he's like, your playing reminds me a lot of Richard Thompson. I said, what's a good album to get? He tells me it was like a Richard and Linda Thompson record. I think that's what it was called. And I forget the name of the album, but I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It was it's different, and then I went down a rabbit hole and looked up a bunch of his stuff. But it is so I can kind of see what people are digging. When I do my In the Listening Room, I'm trying to find stuff that I've never heard, and I want to like it. I want to find something I like. So when I don't like it, I'm just being honest. At first listen, this is what I think about it. And is my first listen usually right? I don't know. Maybe. My first watching of Goodfellas in the theater, I didn't care for it. It's my favorite movie of all time. So I'm not always right. But I do that just so I can listen to something new and try to be exposed to something that maybe I missed. And I hope to do that for you. So when I see these lists and I see like Jimi Hendrix, the best guitar player, and I know a guy and he's always like, Jimmy wrote the book on this and that. It's just like, yeah, personally, and don't take this the wrong way, I was never a Hendrix fan. I think he did some important stuff on the guitar, but his music sucks. And I'm sorry if that bothers you. who knows, in some of the songs on Band of Gypsies I enjoy. There's about 4 songs on Axis Bold as Love, maybe 2 songs on the Are You Experienced record, maybe 2 songs on Electric Ladyland that I can listen to. And if you think I'm wrong, just look up his record sales. He wasn't a huge seller. It didn't connect with a lot of people, and I don't think it's really that musical. But that doesn't make him bad. And what I think is, I think he's a great player. I just don't think he deserves the accolades that maybe, like, I don't think he should be in the same conversation with Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page, to me, was so much more creative. Every time I go look at a Zeppelin song to teach it, I'm always surprised by the layers and complexity of some of the stuff that's going on that he's put on the record. And I think it's great. But there's also so many unsung guys like Brent Mason that's not making any list. I don't know any player on any magazine's top 10 list that can play like Brent Mason. You know, and they always have to throw in the obligatory 50s guys and 60s guys. Like, this list on History 101 had Chuck Berry beating out Eddie Van Halen. On what planet would that happen? Chuck Berry was out of step and out of time and already washed up within 4 years of his career. They were calling those guys in the 50s oldies by 1963. The Beatles had wiped that stuff out and was like, those guys were doing the those guys that weren't even 30 yet, and they're playing oldies music because it was almost irrelevant when it came out. And if you don't think so, that's your opinion. I have mine. But basically, that's really what I wanted to say when I do my lists or when I talk about. But I just find these superlative lists where people are like, here's Rolling Stone. Okay, Rolling Stone's a magazine. Who's the guy writing the article? And why do I give a shit about what his top 43 are or top 100? I don't know anything about him. At least here on this channel, when you see me do a list, you know who I am. You know some of the conversations we've had. You know the music that I'm into. So either you take it with a grain of salt or you put my opinion in regard. But at least there's context to the opinion. I've always said in these lists of the superlatives, like, what's the criteria for these lists? I mean, does Chuck Berry, does he have technical prowess? I mean, you would have to have a list of criteria to make that list. And I'd like to do that sometime. We should do like where we all write in and we comment. I come up with a criteria and we all do some type of thing where we judge, and then we can make a solid top 10 list just for shits and giggles. I've also talked about like top 10 guitar solos. Obviously, they're not the top 10 guitar solos because that doesn't exist. It would be my favorite 10 guitar solos. I get asked that a lot. Like, people ask me a lot, what's my favorite guitar solo or favorite rock guitar solo? And I have a few that I could probably come up with 5 that I really think are in the running. Obviously, I think the best one might be Grant Geisman's solo, or Giesman, however you pronounce his last name, on Feel So Good by Chuck Mangione. I love that solo. And I also love Carlos Rios' guitar solo on Love and Emotion by Gino Vanelli. I love Larry Carlton's guitar solo on Kid Charlemagne. I love Steve Lukather's guitar solo on Rosanna and Breakdown Dead Ahead. An interesting list would be what I think the worst solos are. And I will do that. I will come up with 10 of the worst solos where the criteria is where I think the solo served the song the least. Where I don't believe it helped the song, it hurt the song. It doesn't mean that it's a bad solo, it just means that it's out of place. And speaking of out of place, have you guys ever heard the song Say You, Say Me by Lionel Richie? In the song, the bridge is so awkward, and I always hated it. I heard it recently, and I'm like, what the hell was he thinking? And who, when they mixed it, was like, this is good. It's terrible. It's awful. Anyways, I will post here the History 101 top 43 guitar players. Then I'll just do my top 10. And in my top 10 today, what's on my mind, who are my 10 favorite guitars this minute. But Anyways, I just think these lists of superlatives, this is the best. Says who? I mean, it's such a popularity contest and such nonsense. You'll see what I mean when you see this list. All right, everybody, very good.